another video at the Theology Fairies. I'm Mary Sheree.
I'm Catherine Stewart.
And today we're going to be talking about human error in the church.
So as Catholics, we believe that the church is perfect in her teachings. But obviously we recognize that humanity is sinful. Otherwise we wouldn't have needed Jesus to come and die on the cross for us. We're children of Adam and Eve. We're marked with original sin. We have a sinful inclination. So how can this church that's led by sinners on earth still be perfect? How can something be both?
So to totally understand this, we need to start by making a distinction. The Catholic Church is really two things. It's an institution, and it's also a group of people. The institution and the group of people are both made in the image and likeness of God, in His perfect image. But what makes them different is that the church was instituted by Jesus Christ Himself, God's only Son, the Messiah, who was sinless. The group of people, though, aka the apostles, were total sinners. But they were also total sinners who ended up being saints. It's strange because this is actually one of the reasons that we both love Peter as a biblical figure so much.
We hear almost ad nauseum the phrase, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," as a justification for the office of the Pope. And the way that passage led up to that was, Jesus asks his apostles, "Who do you say that the Son of Man is?" They give some sort of cheesy answers, throwaway answers, and then Peter comes back with a smart answer, inspired by the Holy Spirit, and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And so Jesus turns on him and is like, "You're right, and you get the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Peter's doing a really good job in those verses.
But then 2 verses later, he manages to screw it up. He puts his foot in his mouth, and he gets himself into trouble. You see, Jesus predicts that he's going to suffer, that he's going to die, and that he's going to be resurrected. But Peter thinks he knows better. He says, no, that's not going to happen. Because Peter totally knows better than Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah. So Jesus does what he has to do, and he says one of my favorite biblical quotes. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." And he tells Peter that he's not thinking about holy things. He's thinking about human things. But it's this moment in the Bible that gives the two of us, each on our own and separately, an appreciation for the loudmouths of the church. Because we may or may not know a few of them. But there are none in this room, don't worry.
Peter knew Jesus was the Christ. He just said it, but he took his eye off the prize. He put on his sinful thinking cap instead of wearing his holy thinking cap. He chose not to use his heavenward brain.
So what's cool about this is that Peter is still the rock of the church. Jesus didn't say, "Peter, you're a sinner. You don't get to be the keeper of the keys of the kingdom anymore." No, he still allowed Peter to lead, despite the fact that he had foot and mouth syndrome.
And did Peter's use of his non-heavenward brain negate the authority that Christ gave to him, or the perfection of the church that Christ told him to lead? No. Jesus' message, the gospel, wasn't any less true. Jesus left his perfect church to be led by imperfect people.
And this is something that we see over and over again throughout church history. We constantly have seen thousands of examples of people who have misconstrued, misinterpreted, and flat out violated church teaching.
But we also have tons of examples of people who faithfully lived out the church's perfect teachings in their lives, are awesome saints.
So one of the reasons we want to talk about this is because we think it's important to talk about what's happening in the church today. It's no secret that there are members of this church that are hurting, if not every member of this church that's hurting. And there's pretty clear evidence that some, if not many, have failed. And that is absolutely tragic. And it's okay to be hurt. It's okay to question how somebody could do this or let this happen especially somebody that we've been taught from a young age to trust. It is tragic to use God's name to defy his law.
And that is not Christ's perfect church. There's no doubt that Jesus would say that those people do not truly represent the church he instituted for us on earth.
If Jesus were here, we feel pretty sure that he would point to the Eucharist and say, "This is my church."
And we want to close by saying we know that this is something hard to wrap your head around. It's hard for us to wrap our heads around, to separate the perfect church from the imperfect people in her. But at some point we have to recognize that there must be this serious element of faith. Faith in this church instituted by Jesus Christ as the true church on earth.
And to have faith, we have to do something to make it better. And to make it better, that means that we have to be accountable to ourselves and to each other. We have to hold our friends accountable. And that's difficult. And that's something we want to talk about as well. So we're going to leave off here today. But next week we are going to talk about being our brother's keeper. So if you have questions, please email us, send us a DM on Instagram, reach out to us. We want to answer your questions, and we want to know what we can do to help.
So until next week, encourage you to pray for your church leaders, pray for the church yourself, and always be heroic.
Bye.
Bye.